The Galactic Conclave Chamber was a masterpiece of alien architecture, a vast, spiraling amphitheater that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Crystalline surfaces shifted with holographic displays, each representing the dozens of stellar civilizations gathered for what was supposed to be a routine diplomatic session. At the center stood Commander Sarah Chen, the sole human representative, a solitary figure surrounded by a constellation of alien dignitaries. She knew what was coming. The preliminary reports, the whispered communications, the barely concealed disdain in every diplomatic channel, they all pointed to one inevitable conclusion. Humanity was about to be cast out. Sarah's fingers traced the edge of her comm band, a seemingly simple device that was anything but. To the untrained eye, it looked like a standard military-issue communication tool. In reality, it was a quantum-encrypted marvel of human engineering, capable of transmitting information through methods that would baffle most galactic civilizations. Zarek, the Centaurian diplomatic arbiter, rose to speak. His four-armed form was draped in ceremonial robes that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, a display of cultural wealth and political power. When he spoke, his voice translated through multiple linguistic matrices, each word dripping with condescension. Representatives of the Galactic Conclave, Zarek began, his primary eyes fixed directly on Sarah. We have gathered to address the unprecedented challenge posed by the human species, a civilization that has repeatedly demonstrated technological volatility, cultural inconsistency, and a dangerous propensity for unpredictable behavior. Sarah stood motionless. Years of diplomatic training had prepared her for this moment. She knew every micro-expression, every subtle communication channel would be analyzed. Showing weakness was not an option. The holographic displays began to cycle through a curated selection of human transgressions. A mining incident on a disputed asteroid. A communication protocol that had inadvertently disrupted a Regelian trade route. An experimental faster-than-light drive test that had caused temporary quantum disturbances in a sensitive sector. Each incident was carefully selected, each presentation designed to paint humanity as a reckless, dangerous species unfit for galactic cooperation. The evidence is clear, Zarek continued. Humanity lacks the fundamental stability required for interstellar diplomacy. Their technological developments are erratic, their cultural adaptations unpredictable. They represent a fundamental risk to the established galactic order. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. Holographic voting indicators began to materialize, their color shifting toward unanimous rejection. Sarah knew this was more than a diplomatic hearing. This was an execution, a calculated removal of humanity from any meaningful galactic interaction. Trade routes would be closed. Communication channels would be shut down. Research collaborations would be terminated. In that moment, something crystallized within her, a determination that burned brighter than any diplomatic protocol or established galactic law. As Zarek prepared to deliver the final proclamation, their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, something passed between them, a recognition, not of defeat, but of the challenge that was about to be unleashed. Sarah's slight smile went unnoticed by most, but Zarek saw it, and in that moment he felt a chill run through his multiple circulatory systems. This was not an end. This was a beginning. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was officially rejected by the Galactic Conclave. Little did they know, Commander Sarah Chen and the team behind the Prometheus Initiative were already setting their most audacious plan into motion. 48 hours after the Galactic Conclave's devastating decision, Dr. Akira Nakamura's prosthetic hand moved with impossible precision. The metallic fingers, a testament to human engineering, danced across holographic interfaces within the heart of the Prometheus Initiative's most secure research facility. This wasn't just a research station. It was a fortress carved into the living rock of an asteroid, carefully positioned in a region of space so obscure that most star charts didn't even bother marking it. Layers of quantum camouflage and gravitational disruption made the entire complex invisible to any conventional scanning technology. Quantum entanglement stabilization at 97.3%. Akira muttered, his augmented eye, half biological, half sophisticated sensor array, tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. Around him, the most brilliant and marginalized minds of humanity worked with a fervor that bordered on religious dedication. Elena Rodriguez's approach, her genetic modification kit balanced carefully in her hands. Unlike most of her colleagues who had been ejected from mainstream research, she saw rejection as the ultimate opportunity. The adaptive genome sequencing is showing unprecedented plasticity, she reported, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and barely contained rage. The room was a cathedral of forbidden innovation. Holographic displays flickered with technologies that would have been dismissed as impossible mere months ago. Quantum communication networks that could transmit information faster than light. Adaptive biotechnological systems that could rewrite themselves in real time. Stealth technologies that could render entire fleets invisible. Marcus Wong, the cybersecurity genius with a network of illegal quantum communication relays, looked up from his station. "We've established 12 independent communication nodes," he announced. Each one uses an encryption method that would take the Galactic Conclave's best cryptographers 10,000 years to crack. Akira's prosthetic hand clenched. The memory of his ejection from the International Research Consortium was still fresh. Brilliant minds like his had been systematically pushed out, their revolutionary ideas deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable. Now, those same minds were humanity's greatest weapon. Commander Sarah Chen entered the facility, her presence immediately changing the atmosphere. She wasn't just a military leader, she was the architect of their resistance. Her debriefing from the Galactic Conclave had been the final piece of their preparatory puzzle. "Status report," she commanded. The team exchanged looks. This wasn't just a research project. This was humanity's insurance policy. Their revenge. Their future. Akira stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed a complex three-dimensional model of their most ambitious project. "Project Shadowlight is ready for initial testing," he said, his voice calm but charged with an underlying current of anticipation. The hologram revealed a technology that defied conventional understanding, a method of faster-than-light travel that didn't just bend space, but essentially rewrote the fundamental rules of spatial navigation. It was more than a propulsion system. It was a middle finger to every civilization that had ever doubted humanity. Elena's modified genetic sequencing could adapt human biology to survive in environments that would kill any other known species. Marcus's communication networks could transmit information through channels that were essentially invisible, and Akira's quantum technologies could manipulate reality itself. They weren't just preparing to survive. They were preparing to redefine what was possible. "Let them think they've rejected us," Sarah Chen said, her eyes reflecting the holographic display. "We're going to show them what humanity really means." The Prometheus Initiative was no longer just a research group. It was humanity's silent, deadly answer to galactic rejection. The Regelian High Council chambers pulsed with an eerie bioluminescent light. Ambassador Kailon reviewed diplomatic reports, completely unaware that his most trusted advisor, Michael Chen, a name as fabricated as the meticulously crafted persona behind it, was anything but what he appeared to be. Michael's neural implant, a marvel of human biotechnology, processed information at speeds that would make most alien computational systems seem archaic. Each movement, each carefully modulated tone of voice was a calculated performance. He wasn't just an infiltrator, he was a work of art. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. The Prometheus Initiative's infiltration program was nothing like traditional espionage. These were not mere spies, but fully integrated agents who could reshape entire societal structures from within. "The Centaurian trade negotiations require immediate attention," Michael suggested, his voice carrying just the right mixture of deference and subtle expertise. Kailon, a massive crystalline being whose body shifted with complex internal light patterns, nodded appreciatively. What Kylon didn't know was that this single suggestion would trigger a cascade of economic manipulations that would eventually create microscopic fissures in the Regellian trade network. Each recommendation was a precise surgical strike, designed to slowly and imperceptibly weaken the very systems that had rejected humanity. Across the galaxy, dozens of similar agents moved with similar precision. Lai Wei, embedded as a senior researcher in the Andromedan Scientific Consortium. Amara Okoi, now the chief economic advisor to the Tau Ceti planetary government. Each one a hidden weapon, each one slowly reshaping the galactic landscape. The neural interface in Michael's brain continued its silent work. Quantum encrypted communications transmitted microscopic data packets, invisible to any known detection system. Years of genetic and neural modification had created agents who could literally change their biochemical signature at will, becoming perfect chameleons in alien societies. But infiltration was more than just technological prowess. It was an art of understanding, of becoming. Michael remembered his training, the psychological conditioning that allowed him to not just mimic, but truly understand the intricate social dynamics of an alien civilization. The empathy protocols that went far beyond simple mimicry. He wasn't just collecting information, he was building genuine relationships, gaining real trust. A subtle alert flickered across his neural interface. Back in the hidden asteroid facility, Commander Sarah Chen and her team were analyzing the data streams. Each interaction, each piece of intelligence was carefully mapped, creating a comprehensive understanding of galactic power structures. Preliminary destabilization protocols are functioning at 78.3% efficiency. Marcus Wong's voice came through the encrypted channel only Michael could hear. The Regellian High Council continued its routine, completely unaware that the human they had dismissed was now systematically understanding every weakness in their civilization. Michael allowed himself the briefest moment of satisfaction, a micro-expression that would have gone unnoticed by any biological or technological scanner. Humanity's revenge was not going to be a single moment of triumph. It would be a slow, calculated dismantling of the very systems that had tried to cast them aside. As the bioluminescent lights of the council chamber continued their mesmerizing dance, Michael Chen, human infiltrator extraordinaire, prepared his next move. The galaxy would never see them coming. The holographic display flickered with a constellation of financial data points, each representing a complex web of interstellar economic systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez leaned back, her augmented eyes processing information at speeds that would have been impossible just years ago. "Target acquired," she whispered. The Centaurian Mercantile Exchange was about to experience something it had never seen before. A financial intervention so precise, so subtle, that by the time anyone realized what was happening, entire economic structures would be fundamentally altered. Marcus Wong's fingers danced across a quantum interface that looked more like a living organism than a computer. "Initializing quantum financial cascade," he reported, his voice calm but charged with an underlying current of excitement. What they were about to do was more than just a financial attack. It was a surgical strike against the very infrastructure of galactic economic power. The plan had been years in the making. Every infiltration, every carefully placed agent, every microscopic piece of intelligence had been leading to this moment. The Prometheus Initiative wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the rules of engagement. Elena's modified neural interface began to map out potential economic ripple effects. Each calculation was a multi-dimensional chess move, predicting outcomes centuries in advance. The human capacity for complex systemic thinking was about to be demonstrated on a galactic scale. "First-level disruption initiated," Marcus announced. On the surface, it looked like nothing more than a minor fluctuation in trade derivatives. But beneath that seemingly innocuous movement, a complex algorithm began to work its magic. It wasn't about destroying economies, it was about reshaping them. A Regellian trading hub suddenly found its primary communication networks experiencing inexplicable latency. A Tau Ceti resource allocation system discovered microscopic inefficiencies that would take months to trace. Quantum encrypted financial pathways began to develop unexpected, yet completely undetectable redirections. Commander Sarah Chen watched the developing scenario from the hidden asteroid base. This was more than just revenge. This was a statement. Humanity would not be ignored. They would not be dismissed. Cascade effect at 37%. Elena reported, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and barely contained excitement. The beauty of their approach was its invisibility. Traditional economic warfare left scars, created obvious disruptions. This was different. This was a systemic reprogramming so subtle that by the time anyone realized what was happening, the entire galactic economic landscape would have already changed. Marcus highlighted a particularly complex financial movement. We're not just disrupting, he explained. We're creating new pathways, new possibilities that didn't exist before. It was technological poetry, a symphony of economic manipulation that demonstrated humanity's true potential. They weren't just fighting back, they were showing what human innovation could truly mean. Final stage initiated, Elena announced. The holographic display began to shift, revealing complex patterns that looked more like living organisms than financial data. Each movement was calculated, each shift a testament to human creativity. The Galactic Conclave had rejected humanity. Now, humanity was going to show them exactly what that rejection meant. As the economic cascade continued its silent, devastating progress, Commander Sarah Chen allowed herself the smallest of smiles. They were just getting started. The quantum disruption began like a whisper, barely perceptible at first. Deep within the Andromedan research nexus, Dr. Lai Wei's meticulously planted algorithm activated. What seemed like a routine system update was anything but. Lines of code, so elegantly crafted they appeared to be part of the original system, began their silent work. Simultaneously, across 3 different star systems, carefully positioned human agents initiated their synchronized attack. This wasn't traditional warfare. This was surgical precision weaponized to a level never before conceived. On the Regellian communication hub, communication pathways began to subtly shift. Quantum entanglement devices, designed to look like standard maintenance equipment, started broadcasting interference patterns that would take months to trace. Each transmission was a microscopic needle puncturing the fabric of galactic infrastructure. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the hidden asteroid base, her augmented display showing a 3-dimensional representation of their strategic movements. Each point of interference was calculated with mathematical precision, creating a pattern that looked almost like a living organism. Adaptive, responsive, impossible to predict. Cascading system interference at 62%. Marcus Wong reported, his fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with their own intelligence. No traceable point of origin. The beauty of their approach was its absolute invisibility. Traditional resistance movements left marks, created obvious disruptions. This was different. This was a systemic reprogramming so subtle that by the time anyone realized what was happening, entire technological and communication infrastructures would have already transformed. Lai Wei's algorithm in the Andromedan research nexus was particularly elegant. It didn't destroy. It reimagined. Critical research databases began to develop unexpected correlations. Seemingly unrelated research projects started to align in ways that would take years to understand, if they were ever understood at all. Quantum drift stabilization complete, Elena Rodriguez announced, her genetically modified neural interface processing information at speeds that would make most computational systems look like ancient abacuses. A Tau City planetary defense grid experienced a series of microscopic adjustments. Nothing dramatic, just slight recalibrations that would make their entire system incrementally more vulnerable. Not enough to trigger immediate alarms, but enough to create future opportunities. Akira Nakamura, monitoring from a separate station, allowed himself the briefest moment of satisfaction. His prosthetic hand, a marvel of human engineering that was more advanced than most alien biological systems, adjusted a quantum alignment parameter with impossible precision. They rejected us, Sarah murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. Now we're going to show them what that rejection means. Each intervention was a message, not a violent declaration of war, but a sophisticated demonstration of human potential. They weren't just fighting back. They were revealing a level of technological and strategic thinking that the galactic powers couldn't even comprehend. The quantum disruptions continued their silent dance. Communication networks subtly shifted. Research databases realigned. Defensive systems experienced microscopic vulnerabilities. And nowhere, absolutely nowhere, could anyone trace the origin of these changes. The Prometheus Initiative had turned invisibility into an art form, resistance into a science. Humanity's true revolution had begun. The Galactic Conclave reconvened, unaware that they were about to witness something unprecedented. Commander Sarah Chen stood alone at the center of the massive amphitheater, her presence radiating a calm that felt almost supernatural. The same chamber where humanity had been humiliated now became the stage for their most audacious performance. Zarek, the Centaurian diplomatic arbiter who had once dismissed humanity, watched with growing unease. Something was different. The holographic systems around the chamber began to shift. Distinguished representatives of the galactic civilization, Sarah began, her voice crystal clear. I am here to demonstrate something you have fundamentally misunderstood about humanity. Behind her, a holographic display began to materialize. But this was no ordinary presentation. The data points moved with an intelligence of their own, weaving complex narratives that defied conventional understanding. Each holographic representation showed a different aspect of human intervention. Economic networks that had been subtly redesigned, communication systems that had been imperceptibly optimized, research databases that had developed unexpected correlations, not through destruction, but through elegant, almost living reimagination. For months, we have been moving through your systems, Sarah continued, not as invaders, not as destroyers, but as architects of possibility. Zarek's multiple sensory organs detected something impossible. The very quantum structure of the presentation seemed to be adaptive, responding to the emotional and intellectual responses of the audience. It wasn't just a display. It was a living communication. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring from the hidden base, adjusted quantum entanglement parameters. Marcus Wong's communication systems were creating microscopic bridges between the presentation and the collective consciousness of the alien representatives. The revelations came in waves. Economic systems that had been struggling were shown to have been subtly optimized. Communication networks demonstrated unprecedented efficiency. Research protocols revealed hidden potentials that no single civilization had previously conceived. You rejected us, Sarah said, her voice carrying both steel and an almost philosophical sadness, because you saw difference as a threat. We are showing you that difference is an opportunity. Akira Nakamura's technological innovations manifested in the holographic display. Each data point wasn't just information. It was a living, breathing narrative of human potential. The display began to demonstrate technologies that seemed to dance between possibility and magic. Faster-than-light communication protocols that rewrote fundamental understanding of quantum mechanics. Adaptive biotechnological systems that could reshape themselves in real time. Economic models that didn't just predict future trends, but could actively create new economic possibilities. The Galactic Conclave sat in stunned silence. This wasn't a declaration of war. This was a declaration of potential. Zarek felt something he had never experienced before. Not fear, not anger, but a profound, almost spiritual recognition of a fundamentally different way of understanding existence. We are not asking for your permission, Sarah concluded. We are simply showing you what is possible. The holographic display began to dissolve, leaving behind a sense of something profound. A promise. A challenge. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic interaction. The aftermath of the revelation was unlike anything the galactic community had ever experienced. Diplomatic channels erupted into chaos. The carefully maintained hierarchies that had defined interstellar relations for millennia began to crack and shift. Zarek, once the most vocal opponent of humanity, now found himself in the unprecedented position of becoming their most ardent advocate. "We were wrong," he transmitted during an emergency session of the Galactic Conclave, his crystalline form pulsing with an energy that suggested something between shame and profound respect. Humanity is not a threat to be contained. They are a potential we fail to comprehend. In the hidden asteroid base, Commander Sarah Chen and her team watched the unfolding drama with a mixture of satisfaction and strategic calculation. This was never about revenge. This was about recognition. Dr. Akira Nakamura analyzed the diplomatic transmissions, his augmented systems parsing layers of meaning that would have been invisible to traditional diplomatic analysts. "They're restructuring entire communication protocols based on our demonstration," he reported, a note of wonder in his voice. The transformation wasn't just diplomatic. It was systemic. Research collaborations that had been impossible suddenly became not just feasible, but essential. The technologies humanity had demonstrated created new paradigms of scientific exploration. Universities across alien civilizations began requesting access to human research methodologies. Elena Rodriguez tracked the cascading changes. Economic systems that had been rigid for centuries began to show unprecedented flexibility. The quantum adaptive models introduced by the Prometheus Initiative were reshaping entire economic frameworks. "It's not conquest," Marcus Wong observed, monitoring global communication networks. "It's evolution." Alien civilizations that had once dismissed humanity now found themselves scrambling to understand the new technological and philosophical landscape. Human agents, those carefully placed infiltrators, began to move from covert operations to open advisory roles. Michael Chen, the deep cover agent who had spent years embedded in the Regellian political system, now found himself openly advising their highest councils, not as a spy, but as a genuine strategic partner. The transformation went deeper than technology or diplomacy. It was a fundamental reimagining of what interstellar cooperation could mean. Zarek's personal communication with Sarah Chen revealed the depth of the change. "We saw difference as a threat," he transmitted. "You showed us that difference is the source of true innovation." Humanity had not conquered. They had invited. Not through military might or economic pressure, but through a demonstration of potential that was so profound, so unexpected, that it rewrote the very rules of galactic interaction. The Prometheus Initiative had achieved something far beyond their original mission. They hadn't just proven humanity's worth. They had opened a new chapter of galactic civilization. As the first joint human-alien research initiatives began to take shape, as economic models were rewritten, as communication protocols were revolutionized, something remarkable became clear. This was just the beginning. 10 years after the galactic revelation, humanity stood at the forefront of a new era of interstellar civilization. The asteroid base that had once been the secret heart of the Prometheus Initiative was now the landmark of galactic innovation. What was once hidden had become a beacon of collaborative potential. Researchers from a dozen different species worked side by side, their technologies and cultures blending in ways that would have been unimaginable a decade earlier. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching a joint exploration fleet prepare for its most ambitious mission yet. Her team, those same brilliant minds who had orchestrated humanity's extraordinary transformation, had become the architects of a new galactic paradigm. Dr. Akira Nakamura's prosthetic technologies had revolutionized medical science across multiple civilizations. What was once seen as a limitation had become a blueprint for adaptive biotechnology. Entire species were reimagining their own biological potential based on human innovations. Elena Rodriguez's adaptive genetic research had opened pathways to understanding that transcended individual species. Her work wasn't just about modification. It was about potential, about the fundamental nature of life itself. Marcus Wong's communication technologies had become the standard for interstellar networks. The quantum adaptive systems developed by the Prometheus Initiative now connected civilizations in ways that made previous communication methods seem primitive. Zarek, once humanity's most vocal opponent, now served as a primary diplomatic liaison. The Centaurian who had once dismissed humans now stood as their strongest advocate, a living testament to the power of understanding. The exploration fleet represented more than just a scientific mission. It was a symbol of the new galactic order. Ships designed through collaborative innovation, crewed by a diverse team that represented the true potential of interstellar cooperation. "We're not just exploring space," Sarah told the assembled crew during the launch briefing. "We're exploring possibility." Each ship carried more than scientific equipment. They carried the collective hope of civilizations that had learned to see difference as an opportunity rather than a threat. Technologies that merged rather than competed. Cultures that listened rather than dismissed. The mission's destination was a region of space previously considered too complex, too dangerous to explore. But this crew, with their human-inspired adaptive technologies and collaborative approach, saw it as an invitation. Michael Chen, who had once been a deep cover agent, now served as the mission's primary cultural liaison. His ability to understand, to translate not just languages but entire ways of thinking, had become legendary. As the fleet prepared to jump into uncharted space, something remarkable happened. The quantum communication systems began to pulse with a living intelligence that seemed to breathe with potential. It wasn't just technology. It was a new form of connection. Sarah Chen watched the launch, understanding that this was more than a mission. This was a promise that humanity's greatest strength was never about conquest. It was about potential, about seeing the universe not as a place to be controlled, but as a space of endless possibility. The fleet jumped, and a new chapter of galactic civilization began.